Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of a new entire series. This series will be called Know Your Enemy. Thank you Arya Dark for suggesting this kind of show. On this show, onwards, it will be held every Friday. I've moved the stream to Saturday, so Saturday will remain the stream day. Basically, to not conflict with the official Elder Scrolls Legends Twitch stream held by CVH every Friday. So, know your enemy. On this series, we will talk about a specific deck and its most likely variations, and I will tell you all about how to defeat it, while also pointing out mistakes made by the enemies that I face. This version that I'm playing right now is a Moose Mid-Sorcerer. Today we are talking about Mid-Sorcerer, and rule number 1. If you play a class, stick to its intended purpose. If you're playing aggro against Mid-Sorcerer, then play aggro against Mid-Sorcerer. You don't want to start trading, you don't want to start anything, except play aggro. Aggro decks, most of the aggro decks have some sort of defense mechanism, such as Protector of the Innocent, or Deepwood Trapper, or even Marked Man with its makeshift defense. Use those creatures to block and delay a Mid-Sorcerer's attacks. That is very important. If you are playing mid-range, it all comes down on what kind of cards you have been dealt on the initial hand. If you have aggro cards, then by all means go aggro and don't stop. And make sure you can pull some kind of shenanigans. Most mid-range decks have lightning bolts, they have javelins. Use those to stop the Mid-Sorcerer. If you are dealt late game cards and you can't actually go aggro, then play control. And by control, I mean control. Use high value cards to your advantage. Remove the Mid-Sorcerer's board. If the it all comes down to this baseline. If Mid-Sorcerer develops a board, that game ends right there. There's no way you can recover unless you have some kind of shenanigans. If you're playing, I don't know, Tribunal or some other heavy control decks in which you can remove everything. Otherwise, the game is over. On the turn, Mid-Sorcerer's board overpowers your board. Now, on this match right now, I've basically played somewhat of a control. Why? Because my opponent was playing Spellsword. Keep in mind, Spellsword has no reach, except the javelins and maybe some cast into time. It depends what kind of Spellsword it is. This Spellsword in particular felt like an aggro towards mid-range deck. My opponent's strategy should have been to push as much as he could. When the problems started to appear, and he was unable to remove my my creatures, then the game was over. He committed to initially he committed to aggro. Then he figured out it's better to play control. He started switching, and that's when the game was lost. There's no way he can compensate whatever I'm putting right now on the board. No javelin, no cast into time can save him. However, I am still playing safe. Why? Because there is still chance, a chance that during a prophecy, during a rune break, I might hit another javelin on prophecy. But right now I'm controlling the board however I want. Rule number 2. If you are playing, I don't know, Tribunal, make sure you break at least one rune and then stop your attack. You don't want to give mid-sorcerer cards. Even though you have a decent amount of removals in hand, some creatures may be unable to remove. For example, Reverberating Strike will not work on big creatures. It also stands for Ice Storms. You don't want to give him cards, but you need to break at least one rune, because if he is playing a Moose version, then he will start to draw cards at one point, and you will be left out of removals. So break a rune, break a leg, break a rune, and make sure you control the entire game onwards. Any slip up, any mistake can lead to a devastating strike, and we could lose the game. In this next game, we are playing a variation of the Mid-Sorcerer. Both decks will be linked below. Please take a look at them. You can play them, experiment with them. They are pretty neat. So let's continue with our rule board. Rule number 3. Remember, a Mid-Sorcerer has no reach except lightning bolts. And of course, there's a Hiking Emmerich. And some variations may or may not play Uncano. Mid-Sorcerer has no reach. Remember, there are no charged creatures in purple and blue. That is endurance and intelligence. If he is unable to go aggressive on you, he will try to dominate the board and trade favorably. Trading favorably means don't sacrifice your creatures for nothing. Use the wards, use the 6th house amulets. He will use whatever the means it has, either shackle you with harpies or trade favorably to maintain and increase its board presence. We're playing now against a mid-Dagoth, I presume. The problem with this mid-Dagoth was initially tried to go aggressive, but did not have the cards to do so. An example being the Dushnik. Now, he did play Dushnik in order to remove one of my creatures. And he basically tried to control. The problem is his board presence. He does not have a decent board presence. I'm guessing his cards were not that great at the beginning. This means he should have waited instead of abusing his hand and doing nothing in the process, but depriving him of precious cards. And allowing me to trade and maintain a better board presence. So, rule number 4, and I think that is the final rule that I can think of, is be careful when you break runes. Mid-Sorcerer has a lot of cards, a lot of powerful cards at his disposal. So make sure you start breaking those runes early on, and I don't know, overflow his hand with big creatures that most likely he will be unable to play, or play just one at a time. And avoid breaking runes, or at least try to maintain a rune breaking management system in which you trade in with some of his stuff and break one rune at a time. Why? Because if you break a lot of runes and you don't have lethal the next turn, it's most likely that the Mid-Sorcerer will overflow the board and overpower you in late game. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Cheers.